talk a little bit about that, and then we'll follow by our pledge.
Good evening. Today's invocation is by Mr. Jack Parker. He was born and raised in Merritt Island, Florida. Fulfilled his dream of attending and graduating from Florida State University. He's a Seminole, studying editing, writing, and media. Following graduation from Florida State, he enlisted in Navy Reserves as a master at arms in February 2013. In 2015, Mr. Parker was commissioned into the Navy Chaplain Candidate Officer Program and was hired at Thomas Road Baptist Church as the Operation Coordinator and Chaplain of the Elam Home and Outreach Substance Abuse Ministry for Men. Mr. Parker was appointed lead pastor of King Street Baptist Church March 2019 after serving as the interim for a year. While still commissioned as an officer in the Navy, he plans to go active duty as a Navy chaplain following the completion of his doctorate in educational ministry from the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in May 2020. But most importantly, on March 23, 2019, Mr. Parker married the love of his life, Bethany Parker, in Merritt Island, Florida. She is a third-grade teacher and worship leader at King Street Baptist Church. Both of their families live locally and are deeply entrenched and with a variety of wonderful things in the community. Now, I introduce you to Zach Parker. Are we stand?
Can we all please stand?
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we're blessed to be able to gather here this evening. Lord, we thank you for everyone that is here in attendance today to discuss civil matters. And Lord, we ask that tonight would be a night that we push preferences aside and that you would reveal the priorities of this great city. Lord, we thank you so much for all the seeds that have been planted in this city for so many years. And Lord, we pray that they will continue to come to fruition and that we can enjoy all of the labor that had been invested here. And Lord, allow us to continue to plant more seeds for the future generations. Lord, give this council wisdom, give them courage, and give them vision. Lord, we love you. We thank you so much for all that you do. And all God's people said, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, sir.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. All right. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Williams.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Warner. Here. Councilmember Bovair.
Here.
Councilmember Goins.
Here.
Councilmember Koss.
Here.
City Attorney Garganese. Here. City Manager Takanich. And Assistant City Manager Fuhrer.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. We're going to move on to approval of our agenda and minutes.
Mayor Williams, I have an amendment.
Okay, we have our agenda for our regular meeting, April 10th. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda. Port Commissioner Wayne Justice will not be here as he is watching the launch. But we do have approximately a 3-minute video of the Cocoa Tigers Chorus that was on Channel 6 last week, and I would like to show that instead on number 3 so that people can preview the presentation we will have at our next meeting on April 24th, where they will do a 10-minute performance.
Well, we were going to move our CAFR to that position right there so they can get in here and get out.
Okay.
But, I mean, we can still, we can do that. We can.
So we can add the 3 minutes? Okay. So I'll make a motion to add the 3-minute.
We'll put the CAFR on the item number 3 under awards and presentation, and then we'll just make a 4 there and view that.
All right, second.
Okay, we got a motion by, is that the form of motion? That's what, okay.
Yes.
Okay, we got a motion by Councilwoman Koss and a second by Councilman Goins. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, number 2, our minutes from our regular meetings of February 27, 2019. What's the wishes of the council?
Mayor Williams, I have an amendment.
Okay,
I'd like
we got a motion by Councilman Bovair, but go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There were 2 corrections that I needed to make.
Okay.
and one was on page 3, paragraph 3. This was, I understand, this is when Dr. Fenton from the Florida Solar Energy Center spoke, and it's very technical, difficult to understand, but the way it was written did not accurately describe what he was saying. So I just want to modify page 3, paragraph 3, modify to read, "The goal is to make our buildings as energy efficient as possible and then add rooftop solar. The technology has become much more affordable." On paragraph 4, second sentence, it should read, "In detail, he pointed out the cost effectiveness of driving an electric car."
Okay.
And with those modifications, we have,
Would you like to
Make a
include those
motion.
changes in your motion?
My motion to accept the changes made to the minutes.
and I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion by Councilman Bover, second by Councilwoman Cost. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on to awards and presentation. Item number 1, we have a proclamation for Children's Home Society. Sir, if you can come up to the podium, I'll read this, and then I'll bring it down to you and present it to you. Its proclamation reads, whereas Children's Home Society of Florida, CHSFL, Space Coast Region, is launching its new Space Coast TNT and Transformation Network team. And whereas Space Coast TNT will be charged with sparking an explosion of local awareness, support, and understanding that is needed to keep the local Children's Home Society of Florida region strong. And whereas CHSFL first opened its doors on November the 17th, 1902, as an orphanage to provide a safe home for the growing population of abandoned and homeless children in Jacksonville, thus solving an intense social challenge. And whereas CHSFL in 2018 built a bridge to success for more than 50,000 children and their family members statewide, and more than 5,000 along Florida Space Coast. And whereas CHSFL Space Coast Region is working to solve an intense social challenge and in foster care as we know it by keeping more families safe and strong by building a bridge to success that will allow those suffering poverty and related struggles to reach their full potential. And whereas along Florida Space Coast, they do through early Head Start for infants through the 3-year-olds, targeted case management for those struggling with mental health challenges, families and individuals counseling, and at Endeavor Elementary Community Partnership School, COCO, a model program that is first of its kind in the U.S. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Jake Williams, Jr., on behalf of the City Council of the City of Cocoa, Florida, do hereby proclaim April 1st, 2019 as Children's Home Society Florida Space Coast TNT Transformation Network Team Launch Day. Sir, I'll bring this down to you, and if you guys want to come down, we'll just take a picture with them and present this proclamation to them. Don? Sorry, John.
As you sit down there, Mayor and councilors, I'd just like to say thank you very much on behalf of Children's Home Society of Florida. The mayor said it all, and that was a nice proclamation. Thank you. I do want to point out that as we launch on April 1st, our Transformation Network team and start our next chapter, we're doing that here in Cocoa. And we're doing that in Endeavor Elementary School around the corner. We've set a goal of raising $30,000 in 27 days. And with support from people like Cocoa Community First, Mr. Alan Chapman here behind me with Historic Cocoa Village, and others, we're getting the job done. At a breakfast last week, we received $8,500. And that was on our third day. As of today, we've raised $16,500 on that goal of $30,000. Our goal is to send up to 200 campers to the first ever Endeavor Elementary STEAM, Science, Technology, Engineering, and Arts and Math summer camp. So we're very excited to start that work here, and we thank you so much for this proclamation.
Thank you, sir.
I've got a little outline I want to leave for each of you. I'll leave it with you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to item number 2 under awards and presentation. We got a proclamation about Water Conservation Month. Our Utilities Director.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor, Council. I have a proclamation. Whereas water is a basic and essential need of every living creature, and whereas the state of Florida, water management districts, and city of Cocoa are working together to increase awareness about the importance of water conservation, and whereas the city of Cocoa and the state of Florida has designated April, typically a dry month when water demands are most acute, Florida Water Conservation Month, to educate citizens about how they can help save Florida's precious water resources. Whereas the city of Cocoa has always encouraged and supported water conservation through various educational programs and special events, and whereas every business, industry, school, and citizen can make a difference when it comes to conserving water, and whereas every business, industry, school, and citizen can help by saving water and thus promote a healthy economy and community. And now, therefore, I, Mayor Jake Williams Jr., on behalf of the City of Council of the City of Cocoa, Florida, do hereby proclaim month of April 2019 as Water Conservation Month. The City of Cocoa, Florida is called upon each citizen and business to help protect our precious resource by practicing water-saving measures and becoming more aware of the need to save water. Wherefore, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Cocoa to be affixed this 10th day of April, 2019, signed Mayor Jake Williams.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate that.
You don't want your picture with Jeff?
Oh, we can.
I was just kidding.
I didn't do any hair.
Okay, we're going to go on to our third item on the awards and presentation, which is going to be our CAFR. And give me 1 second here. Okay. And this right here is accept the comprehensive annual financial report for the CAFR and the audit report for the fiscal year 2018. Thank you, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. As you know, the city undergoes an external financial audit every year. The city has completed its audit as of March 29th, 2019. And Joel Knopp, shareholder for Moore Stephens Lovelace, is here to provide a presentation and give you some highlights of the financial report. There was a good report this year, and staff has also applied with the Government Finance Officers Association of America for the CAFR Award for the 3rd year in a row. Joel?
Good evening, Mayor Williams and members of the council. It's a pleasure to be here and present the highlights of the audit for the year ended September 30, 2018. It's a long and arduous process as far as the audit, so this is everyone's favorite time and favorite part of the audit, which is the end of it. So I'm glad to be here to go through some of the highlights. First off, I just want to cover a few required communications under our professional standards. The first one being our responsibility as the auditor was to report on the city's financial statements, and we had to follow our professional standards under the American Institute of CPAs, as well as government audit standards, which are issued by the Office of Management Budget and the GAO office for the federal government. And then also the single audit requirements and the Auditor General requirements for the state of Florida. So there's a lot of standards that we have to follow as it relates to the audit, but and I'll go through our reports on those here shortly. Management also has a responsibility to provide oversight over the financial reporting process, to establish appropriate internal controls, and then also accept responsibility for the financial statements. As part of our audit, we looked at internal controls and compliance significant to the financial statements. That involved the CRAs, the budgetary compliance of the city, as well as looking at various internal controls, especially as it relates to the significant transaction processes of the city. If there were any significant matters, we would discuss those and include those in our reports. There was nothing significant that came up in our audit that we identified as a material weakness. There was one recommendation we had, which I'll go over here shortly. And then at the end of the audit, we also had management provided representations to us that they provided everything we needed for the audit. And Rebecca Bowman was assigned as the individual for oversight of our services. And we met the audit schedule, which, as Ms. Bowman identified, the audit report was issued as of March 29th, and that was that allowed the city to apply for that Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting. As it relates to our audit reports, you'll find those in various pages throughout the document, the main one being pages 15 through 16, which is our report on the financial statements. It was an unmodified opinion, which means that the financial statements are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We did include an emphasis of matter paragraph related to implementation of a new accounting standard, which required the city to report its full liability for other post-employment benefit obligations, and that's basically retiree health care insurance and the subsidy provided to retirees. That is it was a significant restatement of the financials, approximately $15 million impact on the governmental activities net unrestricted net position, and an $8 million impact on the business type activities unrestricted net position. As it relates to our report on internal controls and compliance, you'll find that towards the back of the document. This is where we report on internal controls and compliance significant to the financial statements. We did identify one control deficiency related to the bank reconciliations, and we addressed that and communicated a recommendation there. Management also included their response to that recommendation, and that was appropriately addressed in the report, and we will be looking at that in next year's audit to make sure corrective action was taken. As it relates to these next two reports, these are both required by the Auditor General, the management letter and an accountant's report dealing with investment compliance, and I'm pleased to report there were no findings under the Auditor General requirements. Just real briefly on the financial highlights, this is what we call the government-wide or city-wide analysis, and this is taking into account all the long-term assets of the city as well as all the long-term liabilities. And if you compare in the governmental activities column, specifically in the net position category and under unrestricted, you'll see in 2017 it was at $17.4 million. It dropped in 2018 to only $200,000, and as I mentioned, the significant component of that was the $15 million restatement related to the new accounting standard on other post-employment benefits. But overall, that's still a positive unrestricted number. We work with a lot of cities that had a very significant negative unrestricted net position as a result of the implementation of this new accounting standard. So to be positive after recording all the long-term liabilities of the city is actually a very good position to be in. As it relates to the general fund, the main operating fund of the city, there was a very similar or consistent results. The net change in fund balance was a positive $600,000. The total fund balance remained very consistent at $32.8 million. The unassigned fund balance as a percentage of total expenditures did drop from 29% to 15%, but the $5 million you have in unassigned is still a healthy amount considering you have a stabilization arrangement in your committed fund balance category of approximately $10 million. As it relates to budget and budget compliance, you can see that based on this side of the slide, the city was in compliance with its approved expenditure amount and actually was underspent its budget by $5.4 million. Revenues came in at $1.4 million higher than projected, resulting in a $6.7 million positive budget variance, and the offsetting, or the resulting positive net change in fund balance of $600,000. And lastly, the proprietary fund, which is the Water and Sewer Utility Fund, has had another very tremendous results as it relates to its operations, an $18.5 million operating income, and very positive cash flow for the year as well. But overall, the city is in good financial health as of the end of September 30, 2018, and if there's any questions or comments that you all have, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Any questions?
Good report.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Just need a motion to accept the report.
I make a motion to
Everybody
accept
sit
the report.
there. We got a motion by Councilman Bovair
I'll second.
and a second by Deputy Mayor Warner. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously.
I'd just like to say thank you to whoever prepared this. It gets smaller every year. I really love that. It used to be like this.
When you reduce the font size, it helps.
Is that what it is? I thought it was just me. Okay.
Yeah, it's actually set up. Will
It should be
somebody,
queued up, yeah.
Yeah.
should be queued up? Do
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
you want me to?
Rebecca, thank you.
No, I'll get it. Mr. Mayor, if I could, I just want to extend some gratitude to our finance director and her staff, as well as the directors, managers, and those present at the city. This audit is a reflection of the way they conduct their business on a daily basis, and I think you should be happy to know that there are no findings. We operate in an open and transparent government, and everyone's doing their job every day. So I do want to thank those folks that were involved with this.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Well, just to introduce this, a couple weeks ago, Channel 6 went out to Cocoa High School, and our very own Cocoa Tigers Chorus was rehearsing, and they got the story and have been airing it since. It's a link on their website, but it also gives you an idea of the wealth of talent that we have in our native sons and daughters. We are doing, well, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that they make it to Carnegie Hall next fall for a 9/11 commemorative program. Now, they are the only high school in Florida to be selected to perform there at this international venue, and you'll see they're very talented. Can you, does it go full width?
Yeah.
County Chorus receives a big honor, an invitation to perform at Carnegie Hall. The Cocoa High School Chorus is the only school in Florida invited to the National Fall Sing. And as News 6 anchor Julie Broughton tells us, they need your help to make this dream come true.
Getting results in our schools. Sponsored by Crayola Experience.
50 voices strong. Singing for something bigger than themselves. Preparing to take the stage at Carnegie Hall in the 2019 National Fall Sing, remembering 9/11.
Many of my students have never been on an airplane. Lots of them have never been out of Brevard County.
So when you have a solo like me, you can feel the emotion through the choir, and then it delivers the message. It just is a good feeling.
But for Battle and her classmates to hit the stage at Carnegie Hall, they need $1,500 per student.
This really is a big deal. The best musicians go to Carnegie Hall, and for us to go there is a huge honor, and I really want to be able to go there. We have to raise a lot of money to go, and we want to have a great time, so really need all the support that we can get.
Sometimes I just don't know. I shake every time, every day. It's the closer and closer we get, and just It's exciting. We are working for this trip.
To know that you get to sing for those people, sing for the lost lives, sing for something bigger than yourself. It's just an incredible thought. So, yeah, they're going to be changed forever.
Julie Broughton, getting results, News 6.
Who has chills?
Okay.
I mean, oh my, let's
They're
just
poking
listen
through
to
my
the rest
suit.
of that, right? Well, the chorus is working on at least 2 fundraisers each month, including a series of community concerts. The total amount needed for the trip is about $85,000. We've put a link to the GoFundMe on clickorlando.com. Just click on the Getting Results tab and select In Our Schools. I am guaranteeing you that they are going to raise that money if people look at this piece online again.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
That
What
is
voices.
wild. The talent.
Oh
is
my goodness.
crazy around
well,
here.
you know what they say. How do I get to Carnegie Hall?
Practice.
Practice, practice.
Yeah, or, go pay to see them. That's how you get there.
Yeah.
No one up here can sing, just so you know. We sit here and we're like,
Don't you
wow.
speak for us.
They won't even let me sing at the Carnegie Deli.
Yeah, for real.
Okay. So, of course, Carnegie Hall, of course, is an international venue. They'll be in front of a national audience, and you will have the opportunity, without going to New York, to hear them at our next council meeting. They'll give a very short performance at the beginning of the meeting. So they are also going to be the opening act on July 4th at our amphitheater. And I'm hoping that you're going to see other fundraising events around as well, because just as important as getting the money to get them there is letting everyone in this county and state know that our Native sons and daughters are multi-talented. And this is an example of that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Koss. That was awesome. That was really nice. I was there when they were doing that piece, and it was just like a private concert. It was just amazing watching them perform.
They sang at Dick Blake's memorial.
Yes, they sure did.
You were there.
So, thank you. And we're going to move on to our next item, which is our delegation. And we have, Ms. Emma Kirkpatrick.
Good evening, everybody. Emma Kirkpatrick. Today I'm representing Osorio at 316 Brevard Avenue. I would like to impress upon Public Works to get some sort of signage or blockage on Harrison Street for these 18-wheelers that keep getting stuck. They are not only damaging my property, but they're also damaging city property. We had another one today that was there. All these new curbings that they're putting in, they are running over the curbs. And it's all broken. They've knocked out my planter. They've knocked hundreds of dollars worth of plants out of my garden. And so I went down today to look at the sign that you can't read at all, that's set back about 2 parking spaces from the end of the street, and that sign has been removed to put in the new trash cans. Thank you very much for the new trash cans. They're beautiful, by the way. But now there is no longer any sign at all saying that trucks cannot go down Harrison Street. And so the problem is happening, not that they're not looking or noticing, they're just listening to their GPSs, and their GPSs tell them to go down Harrison Street, and then they get halfway down and realize that they can't make that turn. And it takes up usually at least 15 to 20 minutes, sometimes police presence, to get them around the turn. So if some sort of signage and or an archway that they can't go under would be a really lovely idea. Thank you very much. That is all I had to say today.
Thank you.
I got several calls today from people going, come down here and look at this 18-wheeler stuck in the... Yeah, it's what.
Yeah, and I also have witnessed one of those. It was really a nail biter, whether or not they'd make it around the curve.
And it's not like they're doing it on purpose. The truck drivers would not choose that if they knew what they were getting into. And then once they're there, they can't back out. Right. Like this, yeah, so.
Thank you, Emma. There was someone that we missed here. I don't know if we...
Yeah, Abby.
And if I'd have known, I didn't even think about it, and I hadn't seen anything, but we'll just let you, after the delegation, we'll let you just speak for a minute, if you don't mind, if it's okay with the council. Mm-hmm. She's from St. John Water Management, so. Well, thank you, Emma. And next we have Alex Greenwood.
Thank you, Council. Alex Reno with 640 Brevard Avenue. There are 3 subjects I wanted to refresh everybody's memory on. I think it's very important and need to be considered. I'd like to see if I could get direction on whether we have enough support in the council to put it on the agenda and discuss it. One of them is security provisions for the council chambers. I've talked and brought it up on several occasions. I don't know where we're at currently, even if it's just a wand that you can pass over people. This was also brought up during the P&Z board meeting last night, as a matter of fact. That was also something that was brought up for discussion, and the mayor and Alex Goins was there as well. The other 2 items, one is the Playhouse. I had mentioned that they're receptive to putting back what was historically printed on the building, which was Cocoa Village Playhouse signage that was painted over when the expansion of the Playhouse was done. They're very tight budgeted. They did not say that they just don't want it to happen, but they're worried about the funds that it would cost to print and label the wording back on the building like it was for years. And the last thing is, what updates are there on the crosswalks? I have a lot of people that don't know what's going on, and they're needing input, because I have people that I can give you by name rather than take up the time here that are very concerned. They don't know where we're at. The council didn't get the information early enough, and there were questions about longevity and why the bricks are being removed, things like that. So those are the 3 things that I was just curious. Is this stuff, the items that I need to bring up again to discuss or bring to everybody's attention, or should I just leave it as what I've done in the past?
I mean, depends on how you'd like to approach that. I mean,
well, I can go through the senior manager's office and see how it could be put onto the agenda for discussion during one of your meetings.
Yes,
I think Matt could probably answer the first question about security.
Yeah, some of you may recall at the last city council meeting, there was a security member representing the firm that we'd contracted with to provide an analysis of the council chambers and the security that would be necessary to ensure safety. That report has been provided to staff in a draft format. We're reviewing it and then providing the comments back, and should have a final report shortly. And then on the paving and sidewalks, Ed, I don't know if you want to provide just a quick update on where the city is at with the paving as well as the curb ramps and sidewalks.
Yes, the contractor's proceeding with the next area of work coming up Brevard and Delanoy with the ramps. After the ramps are complete, we'll get a schedule for the paving. Paving has to be done after the ramps are done, and, you know, rain sets them back, different projects, so we'll be getting a schedule as we get a little closer as far as the paving. Right now we're looking at options of paving at night. It is quite a bit more expensive, so we need to in-house, you know, balance, you know, cost versus benefits. But we are looking at some night work. So.
But as far as the pavers, that's not a conversation anymore, correct? Because we already have
the concern is of
compliant, and they will be pulled out, and we will have pavement stamping and coating take place to replace that.
Stamping of concrete, or?
No, we're talking about stamping of the asphalt, like they've been doing.
Okay.
As far as I understand, the contract it's already signed, it's already awarded, and to go back it'll be a major issue.
The paving is awarded, yes, it is. The stamping is not.
Well, it's a shame it didn't go before the council before we got that far. There's a lot of people that really are unhappy with what the plan is, for the crosswalks only.
Right.
They've been there for years, over 40 years. There's never been an issue with them. You know, it's all about ambiance. We don't have to match like what Merrill Island is doing or anything. It designates that as the older part of the city, and by doing the changes that's being planned, it takes away about the ambiance of a historic downtown area. I've seen more examples of arched cobblestones, slate, rock, real brick, nothing that what is proposed to do here. It actually will take away, and I can provide the names and phone numbers of everybody that's very concerned that I've been talking to.
But I did a little research, a little further research on that, and there are some issues that I was totally unaware of.
Oh.
And I had a discussion with the assistant city manager about that yesterday. We talked briefly about it because I had talked to one of the employees that was addressing some of those issues downtown, but I'll get with you and talk with you about it.
Okay. And then the Playhouse idea for bringing back the signage that was there from years ago, is that something that we could create dialogue?
That's something that we can look at, yes.
It's not a big expense. I mean, it's just bringing back like
No, but
what
it's
was
something
painted
we can
over.
look at, yes.
Well, now that they have a foundation, don't they need to weigh in on that? They have their own,
I did speak with them. They're not against it. Their concern was the costs.
well, they'll
And they
probably
don't
need to
have a budget.
communicate with the city then, so.
Yeah, they're depending on the city to provide it. But
Yeah.
again, it's lettering, and you can go to whatever level of lighting you want. What was there originally was spots that lit what was printed in name. Brenda, did you go by there? I think you...
You used to be able to actually see it from the bridge and see it from
Exactly.
Merritt Island because it was
Exactly.
lit up at night, yeah.
And it was Playhouse, and then
Cocoa
it said
Village.
under it Cocoa Village. So
Yeah.
you took care of both. It supported the Playhouse, people had no trouble finding it, and there's plenty of room for it. If
Yeah.
you need me to bring input on that, I can do that too. Thank you
Okay,
for your
thank you.
attention. I guess I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next we have Ms. Bernice Cox.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
Staff. My name is Bernice Cox. I reside at 701 Aurora Street, Cocoa, Florida. First, I'd like to give my thanks to Chief Prince and his staff for being here for me during my medical setback. They are an awesome team of guys. When they come to my door, thanks to them, I have everything set up. I have a lockbox, thanks to the chief. I have a red button, a red tag on my door. They know to go to the refrigerator and get my medical list. And if it's not there, if I'm a conscience, I give them my phone and all my medicines in my phone. I'd like to thank Chief Prince and his staff for that. And I'd like to thank Chief Cantaloupe for always being there for me, along with Sergeant Romaine and his staff. I just want to pay a special thanks to you all guys. Job well done. And my next item is Jackson Street and Polaris. It's like a drainage ditch behind the west of the old soccer field. I had my District 1 Councilman Goins to come out to my house, and we rode by. He took pictures of it. And about 3 weeks later, they had cut the grass on the east side, and a tree had fell over onto the fence that has no trespassing that was put there by the city, I'm sure. They mowed the east side of the ditch, but the west side is still grown up on the other side of the lake, and I'm wondering why that wasn't mowed. Is that part, if the gate's there, I'm assuming that all belongs to the city, but it was just one side, the east side was mowed, the west side is still grown up. But they did cut the tree down that was laying over onto the fence.
Yeah, it's at the soccer field or the
No,
field?
on the west side of the field, it's a ditch back there, drainage ditch behind those houses on Polaris.
Yeah, but there was a tree I saw that was over the fence. up to
Yeah,
the
that's
rubber
gone now.
area, Yeah.
And they cut the east side, but the west side is still all grown up.
All right, she's talking about behind on the west side of Provost, that back side.
Yeah,
And I did see they did cut
the
the east side of it, but she's right about that. On the
West side.
on the other side of the ditch,
Right, the city has access to the east side. The other side, the west side, backs up to the houses.
Right.
And we don't have a maintenance road to get back there. And that's actually one of the projects that's in our 10-year stormwater plan, to pipe that and get rid of that maintenance headache. The only way to get it is by hand, and, you know, I'll just take some time to get someone back there, so.
Okay.
we're
Well, they'll
proposing
still maintain that 25 feet from the property line, the people's property line back there? Is that still city responsible?
Yeah, it's an easement or
An
right
easement,
of
yeah.
some
Okay,
sort.
that's what I want to make sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, man.
I appreciate you.
Okay, and if I can, if we can, if it's okay with the council, I'd like to bring Ms. Johnson up from the St. Johns River Water Management District so she can speak here for a minute.
Of course.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Abby Johnson. I'm the Intergovernmental Coordinator with the St. Johns River Water Management District. And primarily, I wanted to come by and say hello to you collectively. Some of you I've met since you've taken office, and others I have not. So primarily, I just wanted to come by and say hello, and if you ever have a need for the St. Johns Water Management District, I'm your contact. Secondly, I'd love to thank you all for passing or issuing a proclamation tonight in support of Water Conservation Month. We don't take it lightly that you do this. We thank you for leading by example and encouraging all residents and businesses to conserve water. We'd like to say at the district we can each do our part, and every drop counts. So I'm simply here for that, to say thank you and welcome, and if you ever have any need for us, by all means, give us a call.
Thank you.
We certainly appreciate your support, and we know we've collaborated previously on projects in the past with the city of Cocoa, and we look forward to doing that in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna,
I did want you to take a picture with Mr. Walsh.
oh, do you want to take?
You don't like
We will. We're gonna move on to our next item up is our consent agenda. What is the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We got a motion by Deputy Mayor Warner and a second by Councilman Bover. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. All right, we're going to move on to public hearing. And our first item on the public hearing is we have to pass a second and final reading ordinance 01-2019, a zoning map amendment for 2 parcels of land approximately 3.23 acres from CW Wholesale Commercial and RU 17-17 Single Residential to NIST Institutional.
Okay. Mayor, let me read the ordinance in by title. Ordinance number 01-2019, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cocoa, Brevard County, Florida, changing the zoning map designation of 2 parcels of real property on which the current Dr. Jolie Smith Community Center is located, totaling 3.23 acres more or less, and generally located on the south side of Stone Street and west of Washington Street, approximately 0.10 miles west of US 1 in Cocoa, Florida. More particularly and depicted and legally described on Exhibit A attached here 2 from CW Wholesale Commercial in RU 1-7 Single Family Residential to institutional, providing for the repeal of prior and consistent ordinances and resolutions, severability, and an effective date. As you indicated, Mayor, this is second and final reading of this ordinance. It's quasi-judicial rezoning that's being proposed by the city administration.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bunt, any?
It's the 2 parcels for the new Dr. Jolie Smith Center. And so as the city attorney's mentioned, it's currently zoned CW and RU 17. So staff is looking to rezone it as institutional, which will allow for the community center to be built.
Okay. Well, this is a public hearing, so we're going to go ahead and close it this time to the council and open it to the public for any public comments. If there are any. If not, we're going to go ahead and close this to the public and reopen it to the council. What is the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
We got a motion by Councilwoman Cost.
Second.
Second by Deputy Mayor Warner. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you, ma'am. Next item up is conduct a public hearing or obtaining citizen input and comments on our housing and community development needs. Response.
Thank you, Mayor. The city's anticipating receiving approximately $179,889,000 in community development block grant funds. And also for our home grant, we're also looking at $71,828. We don't have our final allocation yet. But in the meantime, we had to start the citizen participation process. We received applications for proposals from various nonprofit organizations. Within your agenda package, it has the criteria of how the review committee has scored and ranked the proposals. So I want to just briefly mention the recommendations from the staff review committee. Community Services Council of Brevard Senior Nutrition Program, recommendation is $12,000. Central Brevard Sharing Center, $14,778. The Salvation Army North Central Brevard Corps, $9,000. Victory Kids Sports, no funding at this time. Abilities, Inc., no funding at this time. Park improvements, which would include Dr. Jolie Smith Center, $58,134. And the proposed Section 108 loan guarantee, the repayment would be $50,000. Staff administration is $34,977, with $1,000 for fair housing outreach and education. Under our home grant, the administration is 8%, which is $5,746, and the remaining funds would go to our mandatory 15% CHOTO set-aside of $10,774, and the rest would be for housing programs, $55,308. As required by the city citizen participation plan, staff is requesting City Council hold a public hearing to obtain citizen input and comments on housing and community development needs and approve the recommendations on the FY 2019-2020 CDBG and home program funding. Upon City Council's approval, a 30-day public comment notice listing proposed projects along with a corresponding action plan will be advertised in the Florida Today newspaper. The notice will also inform the public of the date of the second and final public hearing, which will be held on May 22nd, 2019.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I just had a question about this. I was looking at this, and when I was looking this over, and I was noticed that the park improvements for Dr. Jolie Smith Center and Park, and I know that, I know the amount that it's taken for the facility, and we're invested in that from our general fund, as well as I know there's some additional funds that we get from Diamond Square. And I was just curious why this park versus Provo's or there was a couple other parks that we had that had some serious issues. I was just curious. I mean, I just was this.
We talked about it with the city manager's office, and because the federal funds require any Davis-Bacon, and it's any construction over $2,000, it would be easier for the city to go ahead and fund through CDBG the Dr. Jolie Smith Center. Because of the Section 108 loan, it kicks in all of the federal regulations. You previously approved a substantial amendment moving additional funds from CDBG, and so that's why we're looking at funding using the CDBG money and then general fund for Provost Park and other projects.
And the Victory Kids, that was for physicals? Is that, was that my understanding? They provide physicals?
And also some athletic programs as well.
Okay, I just never heard of them. I was just curious. I didn't, and I saw the rankings, so. But that was it. Anybody else?
I have a question. So the monies that are spent, and these are the federal dollars?
Correct.
For community services, Central Brevard Sharing Center, and Salvation Army, those are really the only monies then that COCO spends on, say, for homeless needs or people that need shelter and meals. We don't put any additional.
Correct. That's public services, so it would be food, any kind of services, and then we have housing dollars. So typically our state funds are what we use for housing repairs and things like that.
Okay.
Has less federal regulations with it.
Okay, well, I'm going to close this to the council at this time because we have a few individuals that want to talk on this item. And I'm just going to open it up to the public. And this time, then we have Mr. David Rumbacker. You like
Brubaker.
Brubaker?
You can call me anything till they forget.
I don't know, I can't read your handwriting.
That's all right. Neither could my English teacher. Hi, my name's Dave Brubaker. I'm the president and CEO of the Sharing Center of Central Brevard, located at 113 Aurora Street, celebrating our 40th year of commitment to this community. I think that speaks volumes. First and foremost, I just wanted to take, I know I have only had 3 minutes, but I did want to take time to thank Chief for this weekend, coming out, cooking in our barbecue contest. We raised $50,000 out there.
Awesome.
100% of that goes to purchase food for our children's weekend feeding program, and we have a number of schools in the Cocoa City limits that we support by that. So thank you for that, and then also thank you to the city for its continued competition to raise food during the holidays between the city of Rockledge and the city of Cocoa. Very honorable. So I do appreciate that. Here today talking about our community kitchen program. The funds that had been mentioned, 100% of the funds will be used to buy food for our community kitchen program. Just wanted to give you some stats. Last year, the 2017-18 year, we were contracted to serve 1,048 with those same funds, 1,048 Cocoa residents. We served 1,006, so we hit 96% of our goal last year in regards to that. We served a total of 1,672 clients, of which, again, 1,048 were claimed to be from Cocoa. And we also registered of that 286 were homeless. And we served a total of 45,463 meals last year through our community kitchen program. This year we're on track. 6 months into the program, we've registered 720. So we are at 65% of our goal for this year. But the disturbing stat that really sticks out at me is that we have exceeded the number of homeless registrants. Last year we did 286 homeless registered. This year we're already at 292. So that's a staggering stack. And we've served 23,239 meals through that program itself. Our program is open to anyone who shows. We do serve a hot meal 6 days a week, 11 to 1, at the 113 Aurora Street, and then a bag lunch on Sundays. So it's the only consistent feeding site in Brevard County, central Brevard County, I should state. And so very proud of that. This particular program, we're seeing a lot of new faces. They're not just your regulars. So it's a very important part that we continue to support these programs and provide access to the low income, no income, fixed income folks who we serve here. And we're proud to serve them. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you. I must be getting old because I just realized that you and I spoke at length in your office here.
We sure did.
Yeah, in November.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. I probably didn't have a beard at that point.
Yeah.
That's, right. That's okay.
Appreciate it.
Well, thank you all. Any questions? I'd like to personally extend an invitation to all the council and city staff for come in and take a tour with us anytime, any date. I would personally extend that invitation so that you can learn more about our program.
And the best way to learn is to come out and have lunch.
Yeah, I'll definitely feed you lunch.
Yeah, been there, done that. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next we have Josh Jensen.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
I'm Josh Jensen. I'm the President and CEO of Aging Matters in Brevard, or our legal name, Community Services Council. And I wanted to just update you on what we were able to accomplish with the CDBG dollars last year. So in 2017, 2018, we agreed to provide 37 additional Meals on Wheels clients with meals. We actually did 47. And this is just for the city of Cocoa. A minimum of 43 seniors at lunch participants increased, and we actually had 53. We agreed to provide 4,044 seniors at lunch meals. We provided 9,151. And we agreed to 3,732 home delivered meals, and we provided in Cocoa 12,775 for the term. And so far this year, we are tracking to provide even more for the community.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for all that you do. I know that if you've never done this before, going out to deliver meals to the seniors, it's an experience because I tell you, one of the hardest thing I had to do was, it's hard to walk away because they really don't, it's not the meal to them, it's the conversation, just having someone to talk to. And I had to learn that I had to pull myself away because I was slowing up the folks that I was with. So.
It'll get us in trouble when the food gets cold.
Yes.
Excited.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. And I also brought our 2018 Community Impact Report for you to, for you to view.
Thank you.
And then next we have Cindy Mitchell.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, I am Cindy Mitchell. I'm the director at the Salvation Army Domestic Violence Program. And if you haven't heard me talk before, you wouldn't know that the Salvation Army actually opened the first domestic violence program in all of Brevard County a long, long time ago, over 35 years ago. And we have been offering services to survivors of domestic violence ever since. And we operate from a confidential location right here in the city of Cocoa. It's confidential by law, actually, exempted from public records disclosure, and for the safety, obviously, because we want to keep the people we serve and our staff safe. What we do is our primary function is to assist survivors in whatever way they need us to. And so that may be that they're able to stay in their own homes and obtain the safety of, services available through law enforcement or through the courts or some other method to be safe and stay. That's the ideal, right? And others may need to be able to come into shelter, and that's another thing that we do. Regardless of whether they are sheltered or not, we can assist them. And so one of the ways that we do that is through a 24-hour domestic violence hotline offered to the entire community, and we get about 2,000 calls a year on that hotline. So we answer questions, give referrals, we do safety planning, and about, in a normal year in shelter, we would get about anywhere from 225 to 250, 260 people in shelter. Last year, for 2017-18, we had 301. It was like off the charts kind of year. And so hopefully we don't repeat that. I love it that people come into shelter. I want them to come into shelter, but it was wow, kind of stuff. So, but we were grateful to have Cocoa CDBG funding to help us pay for food. And so one of the things that is really those kind of basic needs stuff, right? Survivors come into shelter, they usually have nothing. They don't have access usually to the family's finances as part of the abuse. And so when they come to us, we need to be able to provide those things. And so the City of Cocoa helps us do that by funding a good portion of that food cost. So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So how long is the shelter for? There's a maximum?
We don't put a stated maximum. What we offer is a guaranteed minimum stay of 6 weeks. Okay. And after that, we are able to work with people. Like, we know that just saying 6 weeks for everybody, it's not realistic, and some people have more needs than others, and, we go from an individual basis.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. And is there anyone else out there who would like to talk on this item? This is a public hearing, so. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close it to the public and open it back to the council.
Motion approved.
We got a motion by Councilman Bover.
Second.
Second by Deputy Mayor Warner. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you all for coming. We're going to go on to
Number 3?
Yeah, item number 3, approval of the second and final reading of ordinance amending city code chapter 3.5 alarm system and alarm fees.
Okay, second and final.
Oops. Go ahead, I'm sorry, sir.
Second and final reading of ordinance number 02-2019. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cocoa, Brevard County, Florida, amending several provisions of the city code regarding fire prevention activities and matters affecting the responsibilities of the fire department including alarm systems, open fires, numbering of buildings, fire lanes, and other matters pertaining to fire prevention, providing for the repeal of prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions, incorporation into the code, severability, and an effective date. Again, this is second and final reading, also
Thank you,
a public
sir.
hearing item.
Thank you, sir, and I apologize for that. I love reading.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with that there.
But anyway, Chief, or who's,
Yes, as you know, this passed on the first reading.
Chief,
Allows-
want to get in the mic, please, so we can hear you?
This passed on the first reading. This allows us to require for alarm systems, these are alarm systems that are for bigger buildings such as 30,000 square feet or bigger. They allow them to, they must comply with National Fire Protection Standards. They must comply with having key holders within a certain amount of time be there. It does change the false alarm fees and raises those. As you know, we send more response units to a false alarm when we go. It also provides penalties for not having these in where they need to be. It also requires owners to post their addresses in a certain size numbers in certain locations, especially buildings that have multiple or that have multiple buildings in their group and apartments and different things like that. Also requires outdoor fires must be in a container, specifies the container size. Also sets up a permitting process for bonfires. You can't have bonfires as long as they're permitted bonfires for that. And the fire lanes, it just gives us more authority to be able to exercise the right to take care of violators in fire lanes, where we didn't have that right as the fire chief before.
okay, thank you, sir. At this time, we're going to go ahead and close this to the council and open it up to the public for any public comments. Seeing none, we're going to close it to the public and reopen it to the council. What is the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
We got a motion by Councilwoman Koss.
Go.
Second by Councilman Bover. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on to council business. We're going to go to item number 2, which is request city council direction regarding the landscape medians on Highway US 1 and 520.
Yes, Mayor and Council, we have been receiving a little feedback on the condition of the medians. They've actually started to come back a little bit, but a little history. In 2010, 2015 era, Public Works inherited over 25,000 plants in over 50 planting areas, 244 trees, and this work to maintain these, to weed and trim, was contracted out. And the contractors we used were the low bid contractor, and sometimes they didn't perform. The medians have declined because of pests, weeds, mainly weeds, weed competition. The weeds kind of got out of hand after Hurricane Irma. We had a contractor that wasn't performing, and we asked them, where'd you go? When are you coming back? And it turns out they were doing hurricane recovery work as our crews were also trying to get the city back. The weeds got out of hand. We had to fire some contractors. It's not like you do at home. You call the phone and get a new contractor. We went to the second lowest bid, asked them if they would be willing to do the job for the original price that they bid, and had to come back to council. So it takes some time between getting rid of a contractor and getting a new contractor. We've got a pretty good contractor now. He's herbicided, he's done some manual pulling, got the weeds under control. There's some plants that just haven't come back. So we did an assessment. Out of the 25,000 plants, there's about 12,000 that are missing, so almost half. These plants for the smaller society garlic are around $4. The larger oleanders cost $55. And we estimate approximately $127,000 in plants. After you plant, we have to mulch. The mulch was not in the budget for quite a few years. And that's option one, is put it back the way it was. The total cost of that is around $160,000. Staff would like to reduce the areas to be maintained, move some plants around. It would reduce the bed areas in some areas and reduce mulching cost and annual maintenance cost. So we're looking for council direction. Right now, obviously, this is not budgeted, so we would have to look to reserves or fund the work next year.
Now, how far do we go with the medium zone 520?
To the city limits, basically to the, police station, give or take.
Okay. Because I was looking at the mediums there, and I don't know who did them. I looked at them from all the way from 95 down, and they were awesome. I don't know who maintained those, but they've done a great job here recently.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they look really good, even coming into Cocoa. As you get on in with the police station, I was just curious if it was the same individuals that was maintaining those, but they all look really good. But I know that there's some work that needs to be done, and it says a lot when you're coming into the city of Cocoa, reference to our mediums. And it was mentioned last night in the Planning and Zoning Board, there were thoughts that, the FDOT was handling all that, and I said, but I didn't want to get involved in the meeting. I just, because there was a statement that it was actually FDOT and not the city of Cocoa, but I knew better because I knew that, that we invested in those, especially along US 1 there. So that's something that needed to be corrected. But they were told that it was FDOT's mediums, and I was like, but I like I said, I didn't want to get involved in the conversation with their meeting last night. So, but anyway, we got Councilwoman Koss.
Yeah, I just want to. Well, I was going to say, I brought this up in January, of course, and I've been asking for something ever since, and kind of watching the plants die in the last couple of months. So, been looking at it for a while and thinking about, what we might be able to do. And I read this on Sunday, I think, before I was going out to Viera to go shopping, and, riding down US 1, and Rockledge does they do a good job maintaining theirs, and then you get to Viera and they have beautiful medians. And I know it is an issue of maintenance, and I saw these figures, the 160 versus 80, to mow down the plants, put grass down, do the mowing as maintenance. But I've got to ask, because I think what it is we know, and our people know how to mow, but I don't think our people know how to take care of a landscape. Because with the landscape, if we had invested the monies in that initially for the mulching, for the caring for it, thriving, it would have thrived to the point where the grounds would be covered and then there would be less maintenance. That's the whole idea behind building those landscapes.
The mulch, just hasn't been in the budget.
Mm-hmm.
When these were installed, the city was going through some tough times.
Mm-hmm.
And the budget wasn't there for a $60,000 mulch job.
Are you able to use the county's golden mulch? That's what, I know we can take our truck out there and get a truckload of mulch. Are we not able to as a municipality?
We
take
probably
advantage of
could,
that?
but there's concerns over weeds. I think most mulches are heat treated to kill the weeds. And
this is the golden mulch. It's not the other. It's the stuff that's, basically they break down the trees. You have to ask for it. But anyway, I was going to say, agreeing with you, maybe I need to go down 520 and look at that again.
Yeah,
but,
they've done a good job.
I feel like we can't afford not to spend the money because, says a lot about our city, whether it's welcoming, inviting with that kind of landscape. I think that plants and trees versus grass go a lot further to be welcoming, and that if the landscape is developed correctly, in the long run, they're actually less maintenance. Now, I talked with Sally Scalera, who is, works for UF-IFAS. She's also a neighbor and a COCO citizen. She was saying she thought they weren't getting the right irrigation, so I don't know if anyone's checked out the irrigating lines, but she didn't think.
They are checked regularly. and
Okay.
They do get reclaimed water, so there are some.
Okay.
Jack leaves a few nutrients in it, so.
The other thing is, I did see somebody out there spraying, and in fact, I took pictures. One day, this was probably over a month ago now, but it was very breezy, so the spray was not actually hitting the weeds. And I mean, my first concern was for their own health, but also we were paying for it and it wasn't hitting any of the weeds. So it seems like whoever, and I was told that was a contractor, so
Yes, that's
evidently.
the contractor, and we did counsel him on that. Incidentally, the contractor that we have is the same one that's doing Rockledge. So the weeds are coming more under control, but, you know.
Is it then Rockledge, their landscape is just a little more mature? So, yeah, so the weeds can't grow because it's covering more of the area. The other issue is I think we probably did not have the right plant selection on some of those, like the society garlic. There may be a better ground cover that would grow faster, that would be less of a problem, as well as the oleander. But, I mean, those are gardening choices, and I'm wondering, maybe I should make a motion that we work, and in fact, when I talked with Sally this morning, she said that we could call on the county agent to get some suggestions. So maybe if we were able to have staff look at what changes could be made, that perhaps more native species that would be easier to maintain in the long run. I'm definitely not for mowing things down and putting grass in. Might as well cement them over. And in the long run, that grass is going to take more maintenance than if you do a landscape correctly with ground cover and bushes. So we need a motion here, right?
Yeah, but I'm just seeing that.
Working on an item.
Anybody else have anything else to say? But any other comments? And that's just one thing I want to add. I know that when we were doing the initial US 1 widening projects in the 2 phases, that was a reason we did a lot of the stamp mediums where they cut back on some of the maintenance on US 1. And so I thought that would have created, a little bit of a savings that would save us on some of the other stuff so we can keep stuff maintained well. But evidently, I don't know what's happened, but yeah, it's just something we need to address. So I have a card here from a Mr. Warren McGee.
That's for the next item.
Okay, they have it up here for 7-2, so.
That's because the agenda had not been, he's going to speak on the next item.
Okay. What is the wishes of we got Councilman Goins.
Yeah, my only issue is that no matter how much money we spend, if we don't, if the contractors don't do their job and we don't regulate them, I say, or watch over them, then I just don't want to spend $120,000 and we have the same issue happen again. I know another contract. I was talking to the assistant city manager about possibly bringing the Felons Back to Work program. I think I can't think of the name of it, but maybe that's something we can look into as far as a group doing our medians. Because I'm uncomfortable with that, spending that much money.
And then we had the Adopt a Medium program. I don't know whatever happened to that. I don't know if it was a safety issue or what. I know we had that at one time, and
Yes, work in the median requires DO maintenance of traffic plan. You know, you have to be trained in it.
Right, right.
And, there is a liability. The inmate program, we did use that for a while on other areas that were not the medians. We just feel that having a contractor trained to do that is safer for the city and you know, his people.
I got you. And with all due respect, Mr. Regriff, is just, we had that with another contractor. And he, you know, he probably was MOT certified, but he probably didn't have great workers. And because we do the lowest bid contract, which everybody does, you know, most of the time you're gonna get what you pay for.
Right, well, we're fortunate now. We have a contractor that we think will do good. He was quite a bit more than the low bid contractor, and it is the same contractor that Rockledge has.
And have we considered staff, actually having staff, adding staff? Oh, sorry.
That's about 3 times the cost of a contractor when you talk about,
Really?
when you add benefits on top of the actual wages. It gets really, that's why we went to contractors a few years ago. It was much cheaper than actually having city staff. I have to agree with Mrs. Coss. I don't see any reason to put sod out in the medians, which just requires mowing and requires somebody to be out there doing that mowing while traffic is heavy. And it doesn't take in the summertime but a week or 2 before it needs mowing. There's plenty of ground covers that grow slowly and would look much better than sod. If you go down to Wusthof Hospital, they've got gorgeous ground cover down there around their building. It doesn't look like it ever needs to be maintained. I'm fine with option 2, except for the putting the sod in. I don't see any reason to do that. And as far as spending $160,000, I would really like to get some time with this contractor and see how he does perform before we make a huge investment in some new plants and stuff. I mean, let's give him a year, change the ground cover, and, you know, make some improvements, but let's see how he performs before we, I just don't want to spend another $160,000 in a year from now, be in the same place that we're in right now. I'd like to get some history with this contractor and make sure he performs for us like he performs for Rockledge before we make a huge investment in money. So my preference is for option 2, taking out the sod and finding a ground cover that would do a better job than the sod and not require the heavy maintenance that sod and the water that sod requires. And I agree, Sally may have some great ideas for options for that. So that's my preference, but.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else?
No, I'm for preference 2 also.
Okay. Well, I can get a motion from someone, we can move on.
Make a motion we choose preference 2.
We got a motion by Councilman Bover for option 2.
I will second that with the removal of the word sod.
Oh, yeah.
And change sod for ground cover.
And I also wanted to amend it just to include that we could have some guidance from IFAS.
I'm fine with that.
I think if we're talking landscape, we need some landscape plan design that includes natives and includes replacements for some of those species that probably should not have been selected in the first place.
Okay. So,
if I may, you could consider approving a not-to-exceed amount, and staff could work with the county official to determine what the best ground cover would be within those constraints, and then move forward based on that.
okay. So Councilman Bover made a motion, so we're going to have to.
Withdraw my motion that I made,
Okay.
and then you make what you just said.
Okay, so, well, I would up it to 100,000. I would like to make a motion that we not exceed 100,000, that we receive counsel from the county agent, and that we develop a maintenance and
Remove the sod.
long-term landscape plan without removing the sod.
And remove the sod and put ground cover, was that included in there as well, or?
No, there are some places where you already have grass. That was a part of the original plan, and that's fine. But for the places where they had ground cover, that,
We're talking about the option 2 now.
Well, and what the option says is to replace,
Yeah.
put sod in remaining areas. I
Yeah.
just didn't want to add any more sod.
Yeah, okay,
okay, I don't have it in front of me.
okay. Do we have the motion, or we need to hear it again, or did we
Yeah,
get that?
I guess, I'm sorry, not looking at it because,
Did you get it? Carrie?
No, I need it repeated.
Okay.
I have part.
okay. Well.
Repeat what you just said.
Okay,
You want me to try it?
yeah, because this doesn't really make sense.
I make a
Just
motion
reading
that
off
we
of option
adopt option 2, changing the 80,000 to 100,000, not adding any more sod to our medians, adding ground cover instead, and consulting with the county agent on ground covers and plants that would be more native and
Florida
easier to maintain.
Okay, that's it.
And I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay, we got a motion by Deputy Mayor Warner, a second by Councilwoman Cost. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 3. The city staff was requested to investigate traffic speeding at Michigan Avenue, west of Clear Lake Road. I guess, Chief, are you the one talking about this, or is it Mr. Weintraub?
I'll talk on this.
Okay.
City Council directed staff to look at taking measures to reduce speeds on Michigan Avenue subsequent to a traffic incident. The city looked at a couple different measures. One was installing a stop sign at Clemson Drive in Michigan, and the other was increased enforcement action. The stop sign was installed sometime the end of February, I believe. Data was collected before and after. The data we collected did show that the speeds were reduced. Whether this reduction was caused by the enforcement or by obeying the stop sign, we're not sure which. But the 85th percentile speed, which is the speed at which 85% of the cars are at or below, decreased from 39.8 to 35.9 miles an hour. So this was somewhat successful. During the week we did it, there was 22,000 vehicles, so approximately 3,000 vehicles per day. We will go out before school ends and try to do the count again, because it seemed that school being in and school being out did affect the traffic flow and the speeds. Obviously, people taking their kids to school and so on and so forth. So if there's any questions, I can answer that.
Thank you, sir. We have, we got one card here, Mr. Warren McGee, if you'd like to get up and speak on this item, sir. You can state your name and address.
My name is Warren McKee. I live at 2142 Michigan Avenue, the site of the new stop sign. A couple of weeks ago, an officer was monitoring the stop sign across from my front door. I was mowing. His numbers dispute what the Public Works Director stated. He told me that that their information was, well, first let me say, I don't think the officer had any reason whatsoever to lie to me. He said that in a month's time that they recorded 23,000 cars speeding on our street. 23,000 in a month. That's, and when he said so many cars per week, I never thought we had that much traffic. I'm the guy who's been out there holding the signs and picketing. I get a lot of thumbs up, and I got a few of the middle finger signs. I've learned that there's a lot of loud exhaust systems from automobiles when they pull away from a stop sign. And it baffles me that a city person could say, we don't have a problem on Michigan Avenue, and we're going to wait until school lets out. Last week, someone hit a palm tree, for God's sake. You know, I don't know. We can't expect the police to be there 24/7. Don himself told me before the meeting, when the police are there, the cars slow down. When the police is away, the kids will play. I mean, and it's not just Michigan Avenue. We know it's the whole United States. But I want something done on my street. And like I said before, if I got to stand out there till I die with my sign, that's what I'll do. I'm not going to get myself arrested by taking the law in my own hands. But, you know, I'm going to complain. You know, this is total insanity to allow this to continue. I have a neighbor who tried to save a man's life, a female, and he died right in her hands. My son's a paramedic. I was an EMT many, many years ago. When you have someone die in your hands, it's not good. It's ugly. All we're asking for is one more stop sign. In fact, it was suggested to us, and by the way, whoever made the statement that Mr. McKee has no support on this issue, I gave you a petition. I fulfilled the obligations the city wanted of 51%. I could not include the people who rent houses there. I couldn't go out across the country and find the people who own the rental property to get their signatures. I could not use the people on the side streets. But if you want numbers, I'll give you numbers. We want that traffic slowed down. We want it done now. We don't want to wait till school's out. We don't want to see a kid killed. Quite frankly, we do not want to see a kid killed. Just today, before I came down here, a young girl on a bicycle and her small little sister or whatever on a skateboard. And you know what they said at the stop sign? Get out of our way, kids. We don't need to live like this. We're not going to live like this. And if you guys are going to turn your back on us, expect a fight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor?
Councilwoman Coss?
Oh, we're not going to turn our back on you.
You already have.
No, we're not going to turn our back on you. We'll see what we vote on right now, but this is also personal for me. I got a call this weekend. My girlfriend's 28-year-old daughter, riding her bike, driver's car door opens. She avoids it, ends up hit by a truck, and is dead. I remember campaigning in that neighborhood, that group of kids that would follow me around. There are lots of kids in that neighborhood, too. So when we're ready, I'd like to make a motion to put up a stop sign. I think that neighborhood is deserving of it. There are lots of kids. We have in Brevard, we have one of the worst records for pedestrian deaths by speeding. I mean, it's that way in my neighborhood too, but here we have a tragedy that took place, I think it was January, December. An 80-year-old man was killed while mowing his lawn. So we need to get on top of that, and I don't think the stop signs cost that much.
Where exactly would that stop sign be? What street?
I think that could be determined. They probably have right now the stop sign is on what street? So you probably have a system for determining how far
On
apart they are.
Clemson, and I would caution council, stop signs are not really to be used as speed control, traffic control. They do function as speed control, but putting stop sign after stop sign after stop sign is not recommended by a traffic engineer.
So okay, what do you recommend?
Well, there are other things. You can narrow the lanes of the roadway to make it seem narrower. We could do some other structural and non-structural things. The quickest, easiest, cheapest thing is just put up another stop sign, but I'm not going to say that's maybe the right thing to do. It did decrease the speed, the average speed. I don't have it in front of me, Matt. Do you have that?
Yeah, the median speed before the stop sign was 34.17 in a 30-mile-an-hour zone. So the results after the stop sign was 28.91, very similar drop that we saw with the 85th percentile as well.
And see, I could tell you what bothers me is when we get these conflicting reports from different individuals, and it's like, that's what's frustrating. And but we as a council need to be cautious that, we don't let our emotions get involved, because, I know there's a problem there, but we need to make sure that we do all the research that needs to be done so we can make the right decision. Because and he's right. I can't imagine. Multiple streets with stop signs. There are other ways we can address this, and it does need to be addressed. But for right now, if we can just make sure we get some a police presence out there, a little bit more out there now until we can address this issue, then that's what we need to do. But certainly they can't be there all day, but they can be there at some of the most, during some of the hours when we're seeing a lot of activity during the day. So. But anyway,
I'd like to make a recommendation, Mr. Mayor, before we make a...
Councilman Warner, Deputy Mayor Warner.
Two things. I think if, like you said, council does some research, it will find that the best way to reduce the speed of traffic is to make a roadway look narrow. Michigan Avenue is way, way wider than it needs to be. Putting islands, reducing the lane size, putting trees and stuff that make it look narrow, forces people to slow down whether they realize it or not. But I think immediately we have a tool we can probably use that won't cost us anything and won't be an issue of putting a stop sign at every corner, and that is to ask our public information officer at the police department to get some of her media people to come out and do another story and just put it out there to the public that we are going to be there and we are going to be watching speed, and nobody's going to get a break. If they run a stop sign or they speed on that street, they're going to get a ticket. Put out there what the cost of the ticket is. Let Yvonne put it out there through our media resources. Put it out on our social media and just give the public warning. We are out there. We're watching you. If you're speeding on Michigan Avenue, it's going to cost you money. Make an announcement at the high school, because a lot of those cars coming through there are kids at the high school and the college. Put it in their newsletter, whatever. If you don't want a ticket, don't speed on Michigan. We don't have to be there every day. We just have to make them think we're there every day.
See, it's a shortcut for a lot of businesses that, coming off of 520, that's just a bypass and coming up Clear Lake, and they're just shooting through there because you
And we
only
just have to make it less attractive.
Yeah, you have the one stop sign there at Rosentine, and that's, at Rosentine, and you have the other one at Clear Lake, but then other than that, you're just shooting on around until you get to the one that we just put up, so. And
you avoid that.
They're using it as a throughway, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I'm guilty, I've done it.
So I don't know.
Looks like the chief is going to say something.
Mayor, I just wanted to note in there too that from February 9th when the stop sign, this doesn't sound like it's working. February 9th when the stop sign went up to March 30th, a little bit less than 2 months, we made 97 stops. We stopped 97 vehicles, issuing 48 citations, and we did give 49 verbal warnings. But a lot of the initial were verbal warnings just to try to get people along with what Councilwoman Warner was saying, to try to get the message out that, we wanted people to slow down and that the stop sign was there. Because our initial concern was that people were going to run that stop sign and cause more of an incident, because if somebody coming off that side street, if they think the car is going to stop, they pull up and pull out and the car doesn't stop, we tend to have a T-bone crash, which can be a lot of times fatal.
Okay,
And I'd like to make one last comment.
go ahead.
It's a mile-long stretch. I can't imagine that 2 stop signs would be too cumbersome, and I agree that I would prefer if we build a median. If we do take that approach, that would certainly be a beautification as well. But in the meantime, this is a neighborhood that has been traumatized by a death that didn't have to happen. I mean, somebody was mowing their lawn, and even though, stop sign may not have stopped it, I just think it's important to send that message that we are serious about people slowing down, that we're serious about people traveling through our residential areas at reasonable speeds. So
I guess my question is still, where would it be? Where would the additional sidewalk be? Would it be on Rice? Would it be on Mercer? Would it?
No, it'd be down, I would say, I don't know, Ed can probably be more.
It'd have to be down on Tulane, yeah.
I'm just asking, I
It's
don't.
going to be your next logical spot.
Tulane.
Tulane.
Yeah, because really, once you get past, if you look at that roadway, once you get past Tulane, I mean, you get down by Old Fire Station 3
Right.
and the Solar Energy Center, you pretty much get out of the neighborhood. I
Right.
mean, that's more open area. I mean, that would be pretty much the last part of the neighborhood, and then you would open up the rest of the way to Clear Lake Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be the perfect spot. You already have one, so you just put 2 more stop signs up at Tulane.
So if you put it at Tulane, people coming off of Clear Lake into the neighborhood get that first stop sign. But right now, they've got their speed built up because as they're going by the Solar Energy Center and the fire station, they don't feel like they're in a residential area, so their speed's already up by the time they get to Tulane. Okay.
Well, it's a motion on the table.
Put the stop signs at Tulane?
Was there a motion?
Yeah, to put the stop sign at Tulane, and at some point, if we can, if we're able to develop that area in a median.
Second that motion.
Okay, we got a motion by Councilwoman Cost. We got a second by Councilman Bover. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, it passes. Mr. Wheatgraf, you have your marching order, sir.
Yes, sir.
We're going to move on to city business. I'm sorry. Yeah, city business. We have our to approve resolution to commit funds in the general funds balance to increase the stabilization reserve for fiscal year 2019. Finance Director.
Yes, Mayor and Council. The city has a fund balance reserve policy in which 33% of the total operating expenditures of general fund, or a target of no less than $9.5 million, is designated to be set aside as a stabilization reserve. Due to the completion of the CAFR for fiscal year 18, staff went through and reviewed what percentage of total operating expenditures were reserved, and it necessitated an increase of $418,707 to be reserved. So the 33% totals $10,321,958 for fiscal year 19.
Motion to approve.
I got a little discussion with this. I remember talking about this back a little bit, and my thing is, I think back in 2008, 2009, when the bottom kind of dropped out of the economy, and I thank God for the fact that we had actually had the mind and the presence to actually bump up what we had in reserves, because that money saved us and enabled us to not send employees out on furlough. We didn't have to lay anybody off because of the money that the additional dollars we had in our reserves. And I know right now that we have a number of vacant positions. And I just wonder, this $418,000, I know that it can go a long ways for whatever reasons, but I just have some concerns about that, because you never know. I mean, during our bad times, man, having that additional monies in that reserve actually helps out. But that's my comment on there. So any other council members like to chime in or have any comments?
Yeah, I mean, I will. Now, I understood this was just to bring us up. We're talking about transferring funds so that we can meet that 33% bar.
No.
Okay, I'm confused then.
This is, we're at a 33%, but they wanted to decrease it, I guess, from, take $418,000 out of there, basically, right?
The stabilization reserve is being increased because of an increase in operating expenditures, so that 33% is relative to what the operating expenditures are at the end of the fiscal year. And so because of the existing policy being 33% and no less than the 9.5 million, it necessitates an increase in that reserve. However, I will remind council that the city manager previously, I believe at a council meeting, had discussed perhaps changing that to 25%, which is more in alignment with what GFOA recommends. But right now, the existing policy is at 33%, so staff is mandated to set that money aside. Coming forward with a future agenda item requesting if council wants to reduce it to 25%, then we would be able to do another journal entry and reduce it back down. But with the existing policy as it is right now, we're necessitated to set aside that 33%.
Okay.
So we're increasing the fund by $418,000.
Increasing the reserve.
Reserves, yeah,
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
what I thought, okay.
Okay.
So that means you have less money free available to spend.
Right.
Spend,
But
okay.
we can fix that on a future agenda item if that's what council wishes to do.
Okay,
But
I got it.
by
yeah.
today's policy, we have to do this, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Can I
got that one a little
second?
bit wrong. We got a motion by
Second your motion.
Councilman Bovair and a second by, with Councilwoman Goss. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, approve resolution amending FY 2019 budget pertaining to payroll adjustment and union contract and so forth and so on.
Yes, Mayor and Council, staff goes through what we call a mid-year adjustment, and we review the budget to see if there's any adjustments that might be necessitated. So this is our mid-year adjustment. Amendments that are being requested to clean up accounts. If you will recall, right after budget adoption, there were some equity adjustments that were agreed to through the union contracts, and also salary increases as a result of those union contracts. And then in addition, other payroll adjustments were found, and then other miscellaneous transactions. So this agenda item is to clean up the budget through the mid-year.
Thank you, ma'am. What is the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
We got a motion by Deputy Mayor Warner. Second from Councilman Bovair. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Item number 3, adopt a resolution generally disclaiming the city's public park interests in McFarland Park.
Okay. Mayor Williams.
City Attorney.
Hold on.
What's wrong?
I just want to submit my memorandum of voting conflict, so I'll submit this and ask permission to leave the dais.
Yes, ma'am.
Vote.
Coming back, right?
Mr. City Attorney?
At the council's February 27th meeting, the council voted to proceed with the adoption of a resolution to disclaim any existing unrecorded city public park interest in McFarland Park. And we went ahead and created that resolution. And the resolution proposes to, if the council were to adopt it, that the city would disclaim any unrecorded real property interest related to public park in the property commonly known as McFarland Park. The legal description is contained in the resolution. If this resolution is approved, it will be recorded in the public records of Brevard County. In addition, this resolution proposes to reserve any existing public utility interests that the city has in the park due to some stormwater infrastructure, perhaps some other public utility infrastructure related to the existing on the property. So the resolution, consistent with your prior direction, is ready for the city council to consider adopting.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Warren, Deputy Mayor Warner?
Yeah, I just had a couple questions for Anthony. In adopting this resolution, we're in no way, shape, or form giving up the interest that we have as property owners in Carlton Terrace because of the other lots that we own in there, are we? We still have the same interest that any other property owner would have? We still have an easement to the park like everybody else?
Correct. This resolution only pertains to those unrecorded real property interests. Of course, the city, as a property owner of several of the lots in Carlton Terrace, enjoys the same rights and privileges as any other lot owner. Those are recorded interests in the official records.
Okay, and this is strictly an easement. It's not ownership, right? I mean, we don't have an interest in owning McFarland Park, we just have an easement to access McFarland Park. Is that what?
Based on the title report and my understanding of all the records, that is correct. The city doesn't own any fee title interest in McFarland Park. The city has a private easement to use the park for park purposes. Just like any other lot owner in McFarland Park has the right to use that property for park purposes.
So it is strictly an easement, not ownership, not just with us, but with anybody in that development?
My understanding of it is it's an easement.
Okay, thank you.
Dedication and easement.
Okay.
Thank you,
That's
ma'am.
it.
We have one card here, Ms. Marlene Weiss. Okay. If I can get you to state your name and address, please.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Elected officials, city staff. I'm excited to be here. My name's Marlene Weiss. I reside at 2415 Tulane Drive. I guess I'm getting a new stop sign, which I'm actually very excited about. There's a lot of foot traffic, and the sidewalks aren't very safe, and riding your bike in that neighborhood's not safe. It's like, do you choose a bumpy sidewalk, or do you choose, cars speeding past you? It's a difficult recreational area, and there are kids and elderly people in the neighborhood who do like to walk around. It actually is what I am talking to you about tonight. I'm also founded my business, Natural Healing, in 2002 on US 1. I've been here for almost 20 years. And in the past year, I've had a decline in my health. I've gotten an autoimmune disease. The two parks where I used to walk around Clear Lake and go down to McFarland and do yoga and watch the sunrise in the morning were taken away without any kind of notice. I was just informed this will no longer be available to you. And I don't think that there's been due process. I know that I've talked to a lot of people in the community around that area who are still confused, do not know what's going to happen. I can tell you that it looks like a private property now. It has a mailbox. It has a no trespassing sign. It has been clear cut. And this was a beautiful green area that was not developed. Now we even my neighbor girls, Cocoa High, people that go to Cocoa High, they don't have anywhere to go. They would love to go down to downtown Cocoa, but they don't have that kind of transportation. I personally was needing that green area, that I believe that not just me, but actually we all need a place where we can go, where we have tree coverage, where we have nature, that it hasn't been developed, and that is being taken away. I would like to point out that in Cocoa, if it's all privatized, then I think we have a real, legitimate question as to restoring the lagoon and restoring natural vegetation. Like, if we're taking parks away, how is it that and it's that public parks, how is it that we can say the public is responsible when it's all privatized, and the privatization is what's causing the clear cuts? So the rocks have been put in, so the water that we're all trying to protect has been, the natural vegetation has been taken and replaced with rocks and clear cut. How is that, is that my time? Oh, no. Can I have a couple more minutes?
We've had a number of meetings, there's been a number of meetings with reference to this part.
Okay.
And then hopefully our city attorney can explain to you real quick what's happening here, because it's, we've used it as a public park for a number of years, but there is some stuff that have happened, and he probably can.
Yeah, no, I think I know that, okay, so we have a liability insurance issue, we have a issue of the maintenance of doing the bridge, doing the dock, that kind of thing?
No.
Or that the Carlton Terrace actually belongs to the residents?
Yes.
Okay.
Doesn't belong to us, never has.
That's fine, but if you disavow knowledge, what I would like to say is, if you kind of wash your hands of it before it's transitioned, it's right now everything's up in arms. I don't think that you guys have taken enough time with making sure. I really, whoever owns it, it's really not the question. I think it's the transitioning, and this is the step forward for the future. And if we're not putting our if you're not giving enough time to really understand where it's going, and that only 100 of the residents, not the 200 odd residents, are involved in this. It is being taken, even the residents themselves say that it's being taken over by a clique of people, a faction.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I wish we had more standing.
Yes. Horrible. Yeah.
Well, to let you make you feel any better, we all feel like you feel, right? But we kind of hands are tied.
Okay, and I don't know about the other issues about the other parks available, and how the Cocoa giving parks back to Brevard and County, and this is a bigger issue. You guys, okay, you're all on it.
One of
Okay.
those situations, yes, it's out of our hands in a sense. But thank you. What's the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
Well, that sounds like a motion and a second for me.
We got a motion from, Councilman Goins, a second by Councilman Bover. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you.
I think it's important to note that this resolution will also allow the property appraiser to update their database. There's a lot of confusion with the public when they go on the property appraiser site, and it still lists the city of Cocoa as the owner.
Yeah, you need to hurry up and change that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mine's still a morning.
Okay, we're going to move on to our multi-year contracts. Item number 4, approve the police department to enter into a multi-year contract with Axion Enterprise for sole source for their tasers. Chief?
Yes, Mayor and Council. This agenda item will allow the police department to purchase 10 new tasers. Those 10 tasers will replace 10 tasers that are going out of warranty at this time. We've tried to get on a replacement plan. Taser recommends that every 5 years we replace tasers. So by buying 10 each year, instead of having to replace them all at one time, we've got on a replacement plan where we buy 10 instead of having to purchase 50 or 60 at one time.
Okay. I was just curious, is there a reason why we're doing this over a multi-year deal versus just paying that amount? Because I don't know if are the figures, are they the same?
We don't, no, they actually give us a little bit better deal this way, and also it extends the warranty. So over that 5-year period, they completely cover the tasers. If there's an issue with them, we send it back, they send us a new one. And like I said, it kind of gets us on that replacement plan.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was looking at the amounts, and it's like, why are we, you know, so, okay. What's the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
We got a motion by Deputy Mayor Warner. Second by Councilman Bover. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 5, approve the second and final 2-year renewal under contract B-14-07, so for ACE Flow Control, Longwood, Florida. Utilities Director.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor, Council. This agenda item, as you stated, is the second and final approval for ACE Flow Control. They're the contractor that's currently assisting the city with our cross-connection control program. We started back in 2014 with them. This would be the last renewal allowed per the RFQ. So after this approval, we'd have to go back out on the street. So staff's recommending approval. I'm here to answer any of your questions.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We got a second by Deputy Mayor Warner. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, our information agenda. This is just for our information, as usual? Okay. Staff reports. Mr. Wheatgraf?
No report, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, I would like to extend my thanks to the directors and really all the employees for the excellent CAFR that we wound up being able to produce. Finance staff went through a lot of turnover. You lost the finance director. Special thanks to Laura Howell, who stepped in as interim director in the time until I came along. It was challenging for me having to learn the city, coming in new. I certainly learned a lot going through the audit, and it was a pretty thorough audit. So I'd like to extend my thanks to everyone for doing a great job and following the policies of the city, because that's what helps us get a good audit statement. In addition, I would just like to follow up on the internal control comment regarding the bank reconciliations, and I am working with staff to ensure that they're properly trained so that we can be balanced to the penny.
Thank you, ma'am. Chief?
I just want to remind everybody, Friday we'll be out at Clear Pond Estates, 1080 North Fisk, for a community watch meeting. It'll be starting at 5:30 and go till about 6:30.
Thank you, sir. Chief?
I just want to let you know, Mayor, that council approved us to go for a grant on the March 14th meeting. Just let you know, we received notice this week that we got the grant.
Oh, good.
For some EMS software that'll help us do better accounting for what we do on our calls, as you heard Ms. Brown talk about, and get some hardware as well. So that'll be probably coming next meeting to adjust the budget to receive that grant.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Good.
You didn't want to talk about the dogs? Or I guess maybe Deputy Mayor Warner talk about it.
I'll talk about it.
Okay.
The pet map.
I got some great pictures.
Okay, and then Ms. Blunt.
Thank you. Just wanted to remind you, Friday is the Mayor's Manufacturing Tour. If you've already RSVP'd with Samaya, you'll be visiting some very interesting manufacturers in the city of Cocoa. And then I also wanted to announce that on April 3rd, the former Cocoa Junior High School, which is currently the Leon and Jewel Collins Museum of African American History and Culture, was officially placed on the National Register of Historic Places. So as you remember, a few weeks ago, I mentioned that Charlene Nudeman, our deputy director, went up to Tallahassee and spoke before them. And so it's officially been placed on the National Registry. In addition, the former Cocoa Post Office, which is now the Florida Historical Society, was also placed on the National Registry of Historic Places on April 2nd. The state of Florida was actually responsible for placing that themselves.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. That went through pretty quick. Sir?
Yes, sir. One item tonight. On Friday, we had an air conditioning failure at the WFO building. And so we had to, I asked Matt, as the acting city manager, to enact some emergency purchasing procedures. But we're going to be without air conditioning on, the upstairs, 2/3 of the building for about 7 to 8 weeks at best. And so we've moved people, shifted offices around and try to work around it. But we'll be bringing that back as per the requirements of the financial operations manual in an agenda item next time around. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you, sir. Dry ice and fans. But anyway, Tammy.
We have a company in Cocoa called Portable Air. You might want to call them. If I worked for you, I'd be taking vacation.
It's part of our wellness and fitness. Just sweat it out, sweat to the oldies thing.
Sweating to the oldies, yeah, definitely.
No comment. No report.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Shealy?
No comment.
Mr. City Manager, anything? I'm not forgetting you.
Yes, sir. Just want to mention, City Council had received a report related to the rainstorm event, also some hail and wind with that storm. There was a result of some street level flooding downtown. City staff had provided you with a report on that. They've made some changes. We'll continue to monitor that as the seasonal rains set in. This past Saturday was the annual Trash Bash event by Keep Brevard Beautiful, and we already have the results of that. And I can tell you that this past year, Palm Bay was they collected the most trash within the county, and the most volunteers was Melbourne.
Yeah.
Now, I can tell you, we were second in both categories with 313 volunteers and 11,576 pounds of trash collected.
Wow.
So, as always, Cocoa has the volunteers come out, we got the trash out, so it was a really good day for the city.
My goal and what I love to see this time next year, is for us to have the most volunteers, but with the least amount of trash.
Yeah.
Because that means that we're doing our job.
Yeah, man.
So, but thank you. I really did appreciate all the folks that were out. A lot of young folks. Mr. City Attorney.
Just one item to report, Mayor. I sent an email to the council today just advising them that with respect to the collective bargaining negotiations with the Teamsters for the district chief position, an impasse has now been declared. Therefore, we're in that insulation period. The council's going to have to conduct an impasse hearing to resolve the impasse issues. And under Florida law, and I believe we talked about this before, the council sits as an impartial tribunal to make that final decision regarding the impasse issues. Therefore, at this time, council members must refrain from discussing the collective bargaining process with the city management team, any members of the union or their representatives. So just wanted to give you a heads up that hearing is going to be scheduled in the near future, and you're now serving in a different capacity than you were serving at the start of the collective bargaining process. That's my report.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Bover.
Do we miss committee
Okay.
reports? Committee reports?
Well, as you know, we had that hailstorm a week ago, and West Cocoa got really battered. Where I live at Lost Lakes, we have 340 mobile homes, and yesterday the adjuster did 110 homes. Jen, that's not even the touch in the feather. I got $7,000 damage in my carport and screen room and all that just from the hail. And what I'm asking the city this time, like we did with the hurricane, is if we can waive the permit fees for 6 months to give everybody a chance to get their work done. I think that's the way we did it at the last hurricane. Am I correct, Matt?
I believe it was 6 months, and those were for repairs related to hurricane damage,
Yeah.
such as fences.
And in this case, it'd be related to the hail. So I'm requesting the permission from my fellow councilmen, if we could bring it back at the next meeting and adopt a resolution extending that for 6 months, so that way it would give the contractors and the Nancy staff a break, because, 350 people come storming in here, they're just going to be up without
Well, they still have to get
It
permits,
would
they just don't pay the
Yeah,
fees,
it would
right?
still require a permit.
Yeah.
It's just the fee for that is waived.
Yeah.
Well, the fee will be made, but they still need a permit.
Yeah, right.
Okay, well, I stand corrected on that. That's fine.
And that's for
That's
proven
fine.
hurricane. I mean, it's just not just someone just getting a
Hurricane related.
related.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or not hurricane, but
Or a-
Storm-related hail.
Storm related.
Just the hailstorm, yeah.
Yeah.
I stand corrected on that, Nancy, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a lot of damage out west.
Yeah.
Do I need that in the form of a motion?
To bring
Oh,
it
just
back,
some
I would think
consensus
so.
to bring
If we
it
have
back,
consensus amongst council, staff
Okay.
would bring
Yeah.
back a resolution in support.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank everyone else for showing up tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Councilwoman Cost.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, thanks to Ed, he sat down, I spent an hour and a half learning maps and hearing about stormwater plans in preparation for our workshop coming up. So that is this month, the workshop? Next month?
I think it's
The
next
public-
month. Yeah.
Okay. But looking forward to that. So I was also going to ask, committee reports, we always have them at the end, and I've never heard anyone get up, make a report from one of the committees. So,
Well, it's normally committee members that, like, you have some of the chairs that come in here and they want to talk about some stuff, and not necessarily for us to talk about the committees, but
Okay.
just talk about it on our reports.
okay.
Yeah. But it's just for committee members that are chairs that
Yeah.
come in here and want to talk about their,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I'm glad I still got Emma here from Asorios, because I did bring you guys a straw, because, Asorios offers these,
Paper straws.
yes, non-plastic
straws no more.
straws.
They're awesome.
I know you want one.
Oh, I got one.
So, we're going to hear more about this, and Matt and I met with the Brevard Recycling folks, and this whole issue of single plastics is very big, and of course, we're also approaching our, waste management, how we're going to, our new contract coming up, and that is quite a changing sector. So everyone stay tuned for that. We also opened up the solar co-op. Unfortunately, it was done in Titusville instead of Cocoa. But I had asked John, and I know he was working on it, but, he's had a lot on his plate and obviously is working on restoring his health right now. But we were supposed to have a resolution in regard to supporting that solar co-op, and also a study of, because I'd like to get support for waiving the permit fees for those solar rooftops. We don't anticipate it'll be a lot, but perhaps we can have that for the next meeting. They're going to have an information session at the Florida Solar Energy Center on May 22nd at 5:30. And then I guess just one other thing. I know I talk way too much.
No, go ahead.
But when we were in Tallahassee, we got to attend an ethics class that I thought was excellent. And I had a couple of big takeaways from it. And one of them was, the first thing the instructor said to us was to warn us that given the exposure of an elected official today, you need to make sure that your municipality has a culture of he just used the word culture, maybe that doesn't articulate it well, but full access to legal guidance. And if you don't, you should resign immediately. So I got to ask. Do we, does the clock start ticking when I call you? Can I expect, what is our...
Any council member, the mayor can call me at any time, any hour, if you have any questions regarding your responsibilities, either ethically, professionally, pursuant to codes and law. Feel free to contact me.
Okay.
That has been policy of the city as long as I
It's actually in the
can
charter.
remember. Is it in the charter?
It's in the charter. It says,
That's why.
the city council and the members shall deal with the city officers and employees who are subject to the direction and supervision of the city manager only through the city manager. The only people that we have the right to discuss things with without the permission of the city manager is this man right here.
Okay. Thank you for that clarity. Actually, this was more of a a question than a takeaway, was, I mean, he seemed to think, the instructor seemed to think that there were some conflicts of interest if you had, if you lived or had a business in, say, a CRA, and he even suggested that being liaisons to the committees, that we had undue influence.
Certain committees, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Certain like
Yeah,
planning
like
and zoning.
planning and zoning, board of adjustment, code enforcement, because they have attorneys there, staff there, and they're, quasi judicial, so they kind of advise against,
Who was the instructor?
I can't remember his name.
Wasn't Scott
I've
Payne,
got
was
it.
it?
I've got it, and I've got his contact information, too.
And he just said it's just, what it does is it kind of, you know, the way they vote and the way they might perform in those boards can be changed by council members being there, you know?
Right.
In a sense. And then I guess some council members, you have a tendency to want to get involved, or they want to engage you in the conversations
Right.
about stuff that, you know, but, I mean, and it's just not so much that you can't go there, it's just, you know, they just shouldn't go there on a regular basis, in other words.
Well, I mean, the council appoints liaisons and has historically appointed liaisons to the various boards. You make appointments to those boards. Not every board is the same. Some of the boards, as you indicated, Mayor, I mean, have final decision-making authority. Code Enforcement Board, Board of Adjustment, there's a possibility, they make final decisions but could be appealed to the city council. They're quasi-judicial in nature. The CRA boards, where they are charged by law to make final decisions. A liaison going to one of those boards should tread carefully, because you don't want to interfere with the proceedings and the authority of those particular boards. But you go as a liaison for purposes of observation. Clearly, that's one. There are boards where they're just advisory to the city. Sustainability Committee is one. There's nothing wrong with a liaison participating with an advisory board in a semi-de minimis type capacity. You're there to also provide comments if called upon relative to the council's agenda and what's going on. But I would caution anyone from participating in any quasi-judicial proceeding with one of the lower boards, especially the Code Enforcement Board. I don't personally believe council members should be, testifying in code enforcement proceedings. I would be.
Because you get that question every once in a while, Mr. Mayor or Councilman, what do you think? And it's like,
right.
And you're trying to stay solid in there, we should, but.
You're just there to observe and watch. And then on the CRA issue, I would probably need some more clarification on that point, because as you know, we discussed it a little bit tonight. If you have lay persons appointed to a CRA, one of the qualifications, eligibility requirements, is that they be engaged in a business in the CRA. So it's an eligibility requirement for someone to serve.
And that's not our requirement,
that's a state law requirement. Now, I would imagine that, operating a business in a CRA, or a council member operating a business, there may be from time to time issues that come before the board that might present a conflict of interest, where they might have to declare a voting conflict and fill out Form A, right? Like you filled out tonight. So.
Okay. Well, the last big takeaway was just a case example explaining conflict of interest. It involved a municipality that was being sued. The city's insurance company ended up denying the claim because they discovered that one of the council members had met with the complainant to develop testimony for the deposition. Now, the taxpayers ended up taking the liability on this. This is just an example, or it just hit home in terms of how our oath and whose interests we're representing here, and in our actions, who we serve, so. But that's it. That's my
Okay,
report.
thank you, ma'am. Councilman Goins. Thank you,
He's
ma'am.
bossy, isn't he?
Yeah. Thanks, Dad.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Wheatgrave, for getting those trees trimmed up on Stone Street. I mean, I made one email, and you got the guys out there getting it done. We had a lady in a wheelchair; she just couldn't get by, and on that on Stone Street, right behind the Elk Lodge, and so I appreciate you for getting that work done out there. I know you don't hear thank you enough, but I appreciate you for that.
Well, I'll pass it on because I didn't do it.
I know. The next thing, I had a few phone calls about sidewalks possibly being installed on Lake Drive. There is a lot of traffic right now, foot traffic. We have the new probation office. That was, I think they got built a couple years ago. You have the bus terminal, you have Wawa now, drug treatment facilities on that strip between the Peachtree Lake Drive kind of connection. And I had some concerns from a pastor and several other people that just, having issues with people walking in the road because they don't really have a place to walk on that street. I don't know if anything is being planned for the future for that area, but I would definitely love to look into that. But I don't know if maybe it's something that's already in the works I don't know about.
Yes, we have met with the pastor, and we've discussed a possibly cooperative project with Brevard County. It's actually near the city-county line there near Pineda Street.
Yep.
The city is planning to resurface Lake Drive because the pavement's in such poor condition.
Right.
And we are looking to see if we could put a sidewalk at least from VAR up to, city limits.
Okay.
There's some drainage swales and things like that we'll have to figure out. So, but we are looking at that.
Okay, appreciate it. The next kind of is Provost Park. I know that's a pain. That's a pain for many people and definitely for me. And more so this weekend, to have a 12-year-old girl come to me asking me, why does it smell like urine? Why do people sell drugs at a park? Why, when a 12-year-old asks these questions, it put me in an uneasy position. And actually, I was more nervous to even come up with an answer because she's 12. And I feel now, definitely now, I feel responsible. So I'm asking for us, and I want to do this in public because I think we need to put it on public record, but I wanted to put more pressure on that part. If it's cameras, I don't care what it is. I just know when a 12-year-old asks these questions about why she can't use the bathroom, when we talking about slides and swings, and it bothers me that she can't use it because bad people are there and they use the bathroom for the wrong reasons. But when she can't use the bathroom, and then when we try to get her to go to Dollar General to use the bathroom, the Dollar General bathroom is closed because they don't allow people to use the bathroom. So what does this 12-year-old girl use the bathroom? Does she squat behind a car? Does she go behind a tree? I have an issue right now, and I'm uneasy on it because not just because of that 12-year-old, because now how many other 12-year-olds or 10-year-olds or 8-year-olds go to that park and don't have a place to use the bathroom, or got to see a grown man, use the bathroom while they're sliding down a slide. That's the issue for me. I know we put the signs up, which was great, and I'm glad Matt met with them to get that done. But we need to come up with something to take these down. Excuse my language, but take these parks back from bad people.
Yeah.
Right? And everybody out there not bad. I've been out there. A lot of them, some of my friends, some of my cousins, some people associates, some people I graduated with, they know where I'm coming from. When Mary go out there, they know where we coming from. they understand that, you know, we know you, we love you to death, but this stuff has to stop, man. We can't be comfortable enough to just move it to a park because now we have it kind of concentrated or whatever the case may be, but we have to do something. And so, Chief, I'm asking to apply more pressure. And not just one time. I think it's just, and it doesn't have to be to the point where it's you know, jumping down their throat every day. I'm just saying presence. Because I think with presence, you're making them uncomfortable. And I think we talked about that before as well. It's just now, it hit home for me more when a 12-year-old female is telling me, where do I use the bathroom? That hurts me and bothers me. So I think that, and I know they rent the park. Only time they open the gates right now, and also the bathroom is somebody rented. But I worry about the person, because if I go to Rockledge and take my daughter, I use the bathroom. I go in the bathroom and we use the bathroom and we walk out, right? No issue. So does a parent have to take their kid to another city to go down the swings and use the bathroom? No water fountain out there. It's like we in a third world country. And that's the issue. That's the main issue I have with that. So, I think that's, and April 16th is my town hall. I really encouraging people to come out for the town hall. It is at 307 Blake Avenue, which is the Leon Jewell Collins African American History. I want to make it very inviting for people to get more input on you know, the things that you want within the district. I'm very open and receptive. I have a list I have to turn in to the city manager, and I want to have citizen input. I don't want to make my own list of things I have for my priorities. So I want everyone to come out. If you don't live in the district, that's fine too.
Can I give you anything out?
Yeah, I might get some free food or something. I think. I don't know. I might. But Cocoa High School girls 4x1 and 4x4, they both won the Caicos Conference last weekend. Now they're going to district this week, so that's one of the highlights for me last week was just watching that. That was a beautiful day. And that's it really. I appreciate everybody for coming. I'm glad we have all the input within the city. I love the way the city is going in the direction that we're going. Our staff is great. I mean, anytime I come with questions or anything, no one hesitates to call me back except for Nancy, unless I've had chicken or something. But I really appreciate the direction that we're going. Everything that we do is not going to be agreed with, but at the same time, I think all of us up here are willing to sit down and listen to and have dialogue. I think that's the main thing. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Deputy Mayor Warner.
All right, well, I will start off by talking about the pet masks, since you reminded me that we went out to the fire station the other day, our new fire station #1, for the Invisible Fence Company to make a donation to the city of oxygen masks for pets. They were very nice little kits. They come with 3 sizes of masks. The gentleman brought his dog, and in the absence of one of our police canines, I brought my dog, and they tried out the masks. They worked very well. Big dogs, little dogs, birds, guinea pigs, everything should be covered, cats, with these masks. So thank you to the Invisible Fence Company for that donation. There'll be one on all of our fire trucks. Also like to wish a speedy recovery to the city manager, and encourage him to take care of himself. And also tell him, he's probably watching, because we all know he's a little too hands-on not to at least watch that. Matt's doing an excellent job. There's no reason to rush back.
That's the reason to rush back. But go ahead.
Sergeant Major Patel, for those of us who knew him, is a great loss to the city of Cocoa. And I would like to suggest that because our celebration of Memorial Day and several other holidays that involve our military have been enhanced by Sergeant Major Patel. and his volunteer efforts, that we maybe take Memorial Day and recognize it as Sergeant Major Patel Day in the city of Cocoa, so that we can honor him for the service that he gave to us in helping us accomplish those events that we did in the village. I'm sure the city staff has some ideas, and maybe his friends in the village, since he was a regular on the sidewalk in front of Osorio's every day, will have some ideas about how we might best do that. So I just like kind of a consensus for the council that we could do something for Sergeant Major Patel on Memorial Day. And I'm sure all of us have been watching. There's been some newspaper articles and some things going on in some other cities, Cocoa Beach and now Palm Bay, where they're passing ordinances to decriminalize the possession of small amounts of marijuana. I would like for us to take a look at that for two reasons. One, because our jail is always full, and there's no reason for it to be full of people who smoke pot. And secondly, when a young person gets caught and arrested, it has a huge impact on their education, their ability to get a job, and I don't think anybody should have their entire life impacted because they have a small amount of marijuana on them. So I would like for us to look at that. I think it's also a potential revenue source if we institute a fine. I looked at the Cocoa Beach ordinance. They actually leave it up to the officer as to whether or not it should be an arrestable offense or just a fine, and I think a lot of that has to do with how the person responds to being stopped. So I would like to look at that, and I'm not going to look at the police chief while I'm talking about that because I can imagine what his face looks like, but anyway. I also had on my list to talk about the trucks in Cocoa Village, so thank you, Emma, for taking care of that. I would like to thank the sponsors of the Chief's Breakfast. We had a great time, especially Dixon Diner and Merritt Island Pancake House. I don't know if everybody tried the waffles or the French toast from Merritt Island Pancake House, but it was very nice of them to come over there and do that labor-intensive breakfast. We had a really good turnout. We haven't got numbers on how much money Cocoa Community First raised over this breakfast, but it's usually pretty high. I don't think it will be any different this year. I'd also like to thank Dolores and her staff and the kids from the PAL program. They were so impressive. They always are. They do a great job, but I don't know if anybody else had the experience I had, but as I can't believe I'm going to admit this, as I was leaving the buffet table with 2 plates, one of the young men came over and offered to carry my plates for me. And just to have a teenager offer to carry your plates without his mother going, here, help her, it just felt, really, really nice. So I would like to say to Ms. Dolores, great job. You're teaching those kids wonderful things. Just how to be nice to people is great. Also, after the breakfast, we had the tour de force. Great volunteers that came out. It's always great to see our retired officer, Barbara Matthews, and her sister and cousins and the rest of her family and friends that come out and help with that. I think we had 150 riders come through, close to 150. I know Mr. Dial cooked 150 hot dogs, and I had to hide one so Sergeant Moon could have one, so we gave out, not to mention all the other great food we had. So I don't know about everybody else, but I enjoy doing both of those events on the same day so that we can get it all over with, use the same volunteers. It's a long day and it's tiring, but it's a really good day. I also have a couple questions for the city attorney. It's come to my attention that in the court, a judge has issued an order that could affect the city council. And in reading our charter, we have some powers under the charter that it almost sounds like the court is, I don't know if I want to say interfering with, but a judge has issued an order to show cause having to do with one of our positions on city council, and I'm not going to name any names or anything because I don't think that's necessary. I would just like to ask the city attorney if we have any liability and exposure because of this court case and what that might be. And also how that relates to Section 11 under our city charter of qualifications and forfeiture of office procedures. Who has jurisdiction here, us or the courts? And I don't know if Anthony needs time to do some research and get back to us on that, but I am concerned about what exposure and liability we may have as a council and as a city with this order that Judge Turner has issued.
That's a matter that the city of Cocoa is currently not a party in, so I have not seen what you're talking about in terms of an order to show cause. So I would have to look at that and what's going on in that particular case. I'm not privy to that.
Okay. All right, so can you let us know what liability we may have or what?
I'd like to review whatever it is you're talking about first before I comment.
Okay. So can you get a copy of that or, okay.
I have those for him, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Also, two other small things. Under the rules of the charter, they're very specific about the powers of the city council. And I have had some phone calls and some conversations with some city employees who feel like they are getting pressure from elected officials and that their jobs are being interfered with. And they are asking why they are being subjected to direction from council members when they feel like they should only have to take direction from their department heads and their city manager. I'm just asking the council to go in and read the charter so that we are all aware of exactly what our rights and responsibilities are, if you haven't, because under the provisions of the charter, we are not allowed to direct city employees. We are allowed to talk to the department heads because our city manager has given us permission to talk to our department heads. It doesn't give us the right to pick up the phone and call a department head and tell them to do something. It gives us the right to call them and ask questions and have them explain stuff to us. The city manager runs our city, and anything we do needs to go through the city manager or the city manager's office. It's also come to my attention Monday evening that we had a unpublished meeting take place between two members of the council on Monday where city business was discussed. That is a violation of the Sunshine Law. When I first joined this council, I'd like to finish first, but when I first joined this council, and when I first became involved in the city in the 90s, we had some very serious issues with people on the council who felt like they didn't have to follow the rules. We had a chairman of 3 separate boards who pretty much ran the city and told all the elected officials what to do. And they all got together the night before the council meeting and planned their votes ahead of time. It took one of those council members being tried in court and almost going to jail at the age of 80 to put a stop to that. We also had problems in city departments. We had illegal activity taking place in our police department, in our fire department, and in our community services department. We got over that a long time ago. I don't want to see us go back there. I think the people sitting up here that are elected to represent this city ran for office because they have some good ideas and they want to do good things. I just want to caution them to be really careful because violating the Sunshine Law can land your ass in jail. It happens. It's happening right now to people in other cities. This governor that we have in this administration is not playing. I do not want to be on the front page of the paper again, like we were 25 years ago, every single week, with people saying that the city of Cocoa has issues, that the city of Cocoa cheats, lies, steals, whatever. I mean, we went through that. I don't want to go through that again. I haven't spent the last 25 years doing this just so we can go back to what we were doing before. There's rules, follow the rules. If you have a question, you're not sure if the rule applies, that's why we have a city attorney we can talk to. That's why we have a city manager. Just don't break the rules. Don't talk to each other about city business or anything that you think could be city business, except in a publicly advertised meeting. That is so important. When I sat in that courtroom in Titusville and watched 80-year-old Ray DeBoard almost go to jail for violating the Sunshine Law, and that was before I got elected, it made me extremely cautious. If the courts are willing to put an 80-year-old man in jail for talking about city business outside of a city meeting, what would they do to some of the rest of us? So that is the end of my report. I would just like to caution everybody that read your charter, read your Sunshine Law. If you have questions, call the city attorney. We can't be having people talk about us like this, and especially the city employees. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay, I want to address something that you stated there. You were talking about a meeting being held, and I know that's the way it was on the itinerary, but there wasn't a meeting. There was a tour, and that was corrected. I spoke with the assistant city manager about that, but I don't know what information you got. It was an absolute lie, and I'm going to call it what it is. It was a lie. Because actually, I met their Habitat and met city staff. We toured the facility. And after we completed the tour, Gary Palmer with the city showed up that finished a tour that his employee was there doing with us. We left, we went outside, we'd have a discussion. We had a discussion prior to them leaving. Councilwoman Kosh showed up. She was never a part of our discussion. She then went with Mr. Palmer to tour the facility, to go through the facility. So she was never in any discussion that we had or was near any discussion that we had.
And I don't
Because
think
we
I
were-
accused
wait a minute, we
anybody.
were-
I just said
But we-
two people were at an
Excuse me,
unadvertised
let me
meeting.
finish. But we were complete with that, and it wasn't a meeting. That should have never been put on there as a meeting. It was a tour. That's
Our
exactly
Habitat
what it
told me
was.
They were meeting with you to
So,
look at the building.
yeah, they were meeting with me there for a tour, and that's what they were doing. That's what it was all about. There was no discussions about anything. They just wanted to look at the facility. That was it in a nutshell. So if you ever want to know information about what's going on, don't take what someone's telling you. Just come see for yourself, or just approach us and talk about it.
Well, I figured
You
since
know.
it was on the itinerary
And then
of
as far
function
as-
for the mayor, that it was on
And then as far as what Judge Turner entered, there was nothing that was really entered. I have that paperwork, and I will be giving that to the city attorney, so that will be addressed, as well as my attorney's involved. So that is being done. And as far as employees been given directions by this council, that have never happened.
Well, that I can say.
I don't know who
is
you
live.
talking about, I don't know who you're referring to, but we have a job to do.
Yes, we do.
And then sometimes we can't get a hold of the city manager, the assistant city manager. We have a list of the staffers, the department heads, and we have an issue that has to be addressed, then we call them and we get that information.
You call the
That's how
department heads, exactly.
That's how we do our job. And that's what happens. So I don't know what information you got. I don't know who you're talking to. I can care less, but I'm going to do my job that I was elected to do. I'm sick and tired of all this foolishness that we're getting here. We're grown folks. We're individuals. We're elected to office. Let's just do our job. We know the charter. I know the charter.
Well, then
This is
follow it.
not new to me, and I follow the charter.
Did you follow
So
it
get
when
your
you ran
facts,
for election?
get your facts,
and
yes
you
I
didn't
did,
live
and
in
get
the
your
city of
facts right.
Cocoa?
If you don't know what you're talking about. See, that's your
I actually don't
problem.
know what I'm
And you're
talking
wrong, and you're out of order.
You're telling me you live in the city of Cocoa?
But anyway, yes, I do.
Hey.
And I have.
Yeah, we all know.
Do you have a problem with that?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. I have a problem
But
with
anyway,
somebody who
I'm
files
just- can I
homestead
get a
on one
motion to adjourn
property
this
and
meeting?
claims to live in another.
Point of order.
Can I get
All
a
right.
motion to adjourn this meeting?
Mayor.
'Cause
Motion to adjourn.
This is ridiculous. We got a
We
motion by,
don't have a second.
Yeah.
All right. Now, number one, if this is the only time we can have a conversation. It's right here.
And we should be
All
having
right?
one.
So my only problem is this. Anytime we have an issue, I feel like instead of just throwing out innuendos or whatever case may be, just direct it to whoever it may be. I think that's the best way, in my opinion. And now, I'm not saying you're wrong for anything that you said, because I don't know the facts. But let's handle it
like I said, this is the only place that we can have a conversation.
Yeah.
So hey, if you're gonna call somebody out, cool. If it's me, say my name.
We know.
I don't mind it.
Yeah, I know what's driving this, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Excuse me, Mr. Bover. I know what's driving this. I think it's absolutely ridiculous, and you know what? And I'm disgusted at the fact that you would even throw something like that out there. You don't know anything about me and what's going on in my life, period.
No, and I'm really not
And I don't know
interested in
what's going on with
in
your life, and I don't care.
But I do know what I'm hearing from city employees, and that is
I don't
that
care what
we
you're
have
getting
council
from-
people that are violating the
Okay.
charter. I don't have a city employee in this
But
city
you know what?
that
I'm
has
sorry.
any reason to lie.
I'm not going to apologize for being a black man with multiple properties, okay? Thank you.
Well, my question is this,
How many multiple properties do you live in?
Deputy Mayor Warner, so what exactly did our employee say that?
The employees said they were called at home on a weekend by the mayor and instructed to do something that was in violation of what their job normally is. Not just one employee, but multiple employees. We have employees that are afraid to lose their jobs.
Wow.
In all the years I've been here, I've never had an employee tell me that they were afraid the mayor was going to get them fired. But I have it now. Now, we can address this with the city manager when he gets back. We can let the courts address what they're addressing, or we can all start following the law.
I'll tell you.
And we can stop calling city employees
I can tell you right
on the
here
weekend.
and right now, there's only 3 employees that I've ever called at home.
So you're
And
saying
that's
our
been the-
city employees are liars?
That's been the city manager, assistant city manager, and our community development director with reference to a permit issue.
Well, then I will be asking the city manager
Okay.
to check into the employees that are telling lies and see about disciplining them. How's that?
Yes, I'm going to be checking into it as well.
Good.
But anyway,
I am flabbergasted.
oh, I know.
Oh, it is.
Oh, I know.
It's totally embarrassing.
But anyway.
We should be embarrassed,
got a
Shirley. We're
motion.
violating the law.
We got a motion to adjourn by Councilman Bover. We got a second by Councilwoman Cost. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. This is embarrassing.